I'm Samantha Brown, professional organizer, decluttering specialist, and business coach. I created Pro Organizers Coach podcast to empower you to reach new heights in your business. I am on a mission to build a supportive sisterhood of passionate professional organizers. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you're just getting started, this podcast is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Pro Organizers Coach podcast and YouTube channel. I am super excited about today's episode and the topic that we have for you because I know you have dealt with this at some point in time or another, just as I have and just as my guest has. So today we are talking about how to skyrocket productivity, which, most of us have our ideas on what we should do. But the other part of that is we are going to kick procrastination to the curb. And I'm so ready to have this conversation. So my guest today is Robin J. Emdon, and he has a podcast called Goal Busters, which you should totally go check out. And thank you, Robin, for being on the show.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here. And thank you for doing Goal Busters with that. We had fun.
We did. It was amazing. Okay, so real quick, I want everyone to know you do have a book called Get Resultsology. Say that 3 times fast, right? But it's the science of getting stuff done. And so we're going to definitely jump into that because that's kind of the point of all of this. But if you don't mind, do you care kind of telling everybody who you are, a little bit of your backstory, and then we can get into the topic?
Yes, sure. So I started out training as a life coach way back in 2001 under the tutelage of Tony Robbins and his team over in California. But obviously, as you can tell from my accent, I'm British. I live in Torquay in South Devon in England. And I trained with him and with a view at the time to getting a job with him. But his plans changed. My plans changed ostensibly. I had young children and I didn't want to leave England. And we had Skype in those days. Remember Skype before Microsoft pulled it off? He says a little bit bitter about that. But remote working that back then was not optional with Tony's planning. And I set up my business here in the UK. As luck would have it, I became a full-time single parent. A handful of years later, I parked the coaching, cut forward to 2019, and I'm in a coffee shop bragging to my older brother about the fact I've just completed my British Open University degree, which is a work-from-home degree. That's a home study course. And my brother was falling asleep. The caffeine wasn't kicking in at all. And I thought, I've got to wake him up. I've got to say something. So I said, trust me to take 10 years to do something I should have done in 6. And he woke up and he went, why was that? And I thought, caffeine's working now, isn't it? And so I said, procrastination. And I laughed and changed the subject. And then when I was driving home, I was thinking, hang on a minute. Robin, you're a trained life coach. How dare you procrastinate? How dare you? What the heck are you talking about? I thought, well, I really need to square that circle. So then I asked myself a couple of coaching questions, which, once you learn these skills, you never forget them. And they're great questions, which is where else in your life, Robin, has this procrastination behavior turned up? And I thought, oh, crikey, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And then the second question is, okay, so what does it cost you? And I thought, and by the time I got home, I was really angry with myself at the thinking about it's actually cost me a lot in every conceivable aspect of my life, from relationships through to finances, career, health, everything. And I was really, really emotionally upset, as you can imagine. I was thinking, well, what the heck's going on? And I realized that over all of that time, I'd been in denial about it. I rang my brother, actually, who used to be a mental health professional. I'd done over 100 days training with Robbins back in the early 2000s. So I thought, between us, I rang him up. So just remind me, what's the cure for procrastination? And I had a little mental pen and paper there. And I thought he'd just rattle off a quick sentence. Oh, Robin, come on, you know this. And I thought, yes, I know this. But he didn't say that. There was absolute silence and then a sharp intake of breath. And then he said, you know what? I'm not sure I really know. Well, he probably does now because we've talked about it a lot since then. But I thought, oh, crikey, what the heck's going on? Well, the first thing was I needed to recognize that I'd always treated procrastination to like to treat the common cold. Before the age of COVID, if you had a bit of a sniffle, you just, I've got a cold, so what? I'll work through it, not a problem, hopefully it won't get terrible. We just worked through colds, didn't we? And I used to do the same with procrastination. Oh, I'm procrastinating today. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. the procrastinator's mantra. The trouble is, tomorrow becomes the next day, from the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, and in my case, the next couple of decades, really, before I finally woke up and went, hang on a minute, you need to you need to own this. You are a chronic procrastinator, Robin. You need to own this and you need to do something about it. And so that's when then the gift that kept on giving, and I do mean that in an ironic sense, COVID happened and we were all locked down. And I thought, okay, now I've got more time than ever. So I started researching it. And that was like 5 years ago, 3 years of a deep dive into what's out there about procrastination and productivity. There's loads, but I thought I need to bring it together in a way that is coherent for people and easy for people to understand, because there was a bewildering array of, like with anything on the internet, whatever you ask it, you can get a million different answers and none of them will be the same answer.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and that's very similar to like kind of my story in the sense that I tell my women in my membership all the time, like, please listen to other people and get your information. That's totally fine. But just be aware of where you're getting your information and how many different opinions you're listening to on the same topic, because then you're overwhelmed. Then you think that you're doing something wrong. Then like there's just a lot of different layers to, because we can find out, quote unquote, anything. So now we're finding everything on that topic, whatever the topic may be, starting your business, whatever. And for me, it was very similar during COVID when I started my business. There wasn't a roadmap to do this. And so I had to kind of piece the puzzle pieces together. And it's extremely hard, which is why I got so passionate about helping other women do it with a roadmap versus trying to find all of the stuff that they could. And I think productivity is very similar in the sense that we all have kind of our thoughts on it or ways, pick 3 things a day and get those 3 things done or whatever the case may be, right? Like we all have these theories, but I love that you actually did the research because it was a problem you had, and you did so good of work that you wrote a book. Like, that's amazing.
Well, that's because, now here's the thing, here's the kicker. The word is get resultsology, which is a word I made up for the technology. It's an ology. It's a science, right? It's a science, but it's a science. It's a kind of an ironic meaning I've given to it. It is a science because what I discovered was I didn't need to do any research, because I very quickly found that in, say, like one typical 10-year period in the early 2000s, over 900 research projects had been conducted at academic level into procrastination and productivity. And I thought, well, I don't need to do that. But what I do need to do is bring the common threads together, because not everything is equal. I was reminded when you were saying there about all the different skills. I raised the point and you went and you ran with it, about all the different bits of advice you can get. In England, in Britain, we've got the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, TV and radio. And they have a duty when they present news, to present it in a balanced way. So, for example, during our debate that we had in 2015-16 about leaving the European Union, Brexit as it's known, they had to find economists in favor of it and economists against it, experts. And there's a famous story of how for one news program, they went out and they tried to find economists that were against it and saying it would be very bad for the economy. And they found loads. And then they tried to find economists that said that it was good for the economy, credible economists. They struggled. They really, really struggled. And to cut a long story short, they eventually found someone who pretty obscure. But when they put them on the news, they presented them as though they were equals. They had one economist for and one economist against, and just said, here are the arguments on either side. It did not reflect the fact that in the broad professionalism of economics, and I don't want to get into the Brexit argument, which is still tender here in the UK, but they were basically saying, they were basically misleading by the fact that presenting a balanced argument meant that they didn't get across actually what you really needed to know. And I thought, well, with the procrastination, I found a lot of misinformation out there, but I needed to identify it. I needed to find out what the science said. So the Get Resultsology title came from 2 things. First, I went and looked at the science, and there's a lot of other authors out there, so that academics. So I went to the academic authors and said, well, what have you found? So I took some shortcuts where I could, so to find who'd researched the research and looked at their conclusions, as well as, and then going to read some of the papers myself, but not 900, not by any stretch of the imagination. don't have enough lifetime to do that. And then the second thing was, it is a system now. It is a method, which is how you do science. But I got to stress, my degree is in arts and humanities. I'm not a scientist. And to give you an idea of how good I am at science, my last science exam at school was biology, and I got 9%, which sounds terrible until you realize that afterwards, and I asked the teacher who'd marked me up on it, I said, how did I get 9%? I didn't answer any of the questions, not one, because I genuinely cannot understand it. I'd like to, but I don't understand it. And he said, oh, silly boy. He said, you spelt your name right, and I felt sorry for you. And I laughed, and that is literally my understanding of science. So I thought, I look at the science, and then I think, okay, how can I translate this into English?
Right.
How can I actually make this understandable? So the book is written as I am a layperson. I have no medical qualifications and no claim to any scientific background. I thought, okay, how can I turn this into plain English so that I probably annoy the scientists, but I think there's quite a lot of people out there, they're not scientists, but they do work for themselves. They have their own businesses, and they'd really like to understand at a level that is easy to remember.
1,000%. So I know you and I had a conversation before we hit record. The book is set up where it has 3 sections, essentially. Do you mind kind of touching on those real quick?
Yes. So yeah, real quick. So I don't do real quick, but I'll try. So section 1 is understanding. You need to understand the problem. Someone said to me when I sent them an early copy of the book, oh, just tell me what the fix is. And I said, what, you mean like give you a magic pill? Do you think I'd produce a book if there was a magic pill? I'd be selling the magic pill. Honestly, why would I write a book if I could just there isn't a magic pill. You need to understand why you procrastinate. And the way to think about that is very simple. If you get to the end of the next 12 months and you look at your finances and your finances are in tatters and you're like, well, what do I do about it? You can do anything about it. You can always make more money. Now, you can't do what governments do, which is print money. You get sent to jail for doing that. You can't rob money, which you get sent to jail for that. But you can find a way to make more money. There is an infinite supply of money in the world. There is. And it's just a case you've got to figure out how to legally get some into your bank account and your pocket. So that's easy. But procrastination is a thief of time. And when your time is stolen, you do not get it back. It's gone for good. So at the end of 12 months, if you look back over the last 12 months, or in my case, over the last several decades, can't get them back. The times that I wasted in those decades, I've wasted them. I do not know how much time I've got left. That's an unknown. But I do know that the time that I lost cannot be made up. So the time to catch procrastination is when you are doing it or you are about to do it. I still describe myself as a chronic procrastinator, and I catch myself going into it every single day. But I understand now why that's happening, because I've written about it, I've researched, oh, that's what's going on. And that's why section 2 of the book is about how do you strategically get out of it? How do you skyrocket your productivity and kick that procrastination to the curb? Because something like 95% of us self-identify as procrastinators sometimes. Well, so what? We all procrastinate a little bit. But of those 95%, 1 in 5 will tell you that they are chronic procrastinators, as in it's life-changing. It's a major problem. I'm one of those. That's why it was such a big thing for me. So I thought, okay, let's find the strategies that work. There's plenty of them out there. There are common themes. They're not hard to find. It's all about getting motivated, how to do it. Now, just to understand, by the way, something easy for people to remember, we procrastinate because we're hardwired to. It's in our brains. It's in our DNA. It's part of our survival mechanism. And the easiest way I can describe it is if you go back in time and you imagine you're hiding in a cave from a man-eating bear that's outside that wants you for lunch. Your procrastination is there because you've got to go through this thought process. Well, do I go out and kill the bear because we're going to starve in here unless we get rid of the bear? But the bear might actually kill me. And so your procrastination is like, yeah, maybe I'll just wait for the bear to fall asleep. Maybe I'll just wait for the bear to go away. That's what's going on. It's a survival mechanism. And although the bear has gone, we now have landlords that want their rent. We have utilities that want their bills paid. We have bosses that want us to do things. We have all sorts of things pushing us around. We have bad health amongst our own and amongst our loved ones that impact us and feels very threatening. So all of that is going on in your mind. So you need strategies to work out how to get past them. And then the third section of the book, I told you I couldn't be brave. is another M. There's motivation is what strategy is about, but then you need momentum. And I realized that was the missing link. There's a ton of material out there about how to get motivated. But I have behind me in a cupboard, I have a literal cupboard full of planners and schedulers and all the most amazing, wonderful, weird, wonderful, crazy ideas. Some of them are brilliant about how to get productive. And I've used them all, and they're in a cupboard for a reason. I stopped using them. I don't even remember when I stopped using them, but I thought, oh yeah, I remember that. That was really good. Oh, wait a minute. What? It's in the cupboard. Oh, that one's, oh, it's in the cupboard. I lost my momentum. And so the third section has some super advanced strategies for building momentum, including what encouraged me. The science kept shouting at me, the real motivation, momentum driver is accountability, external accountability. Because when you have external accountability, when you're working for yourself from home, I've got a nice coffee machine, I've got a nice view from the window, I've got flexible hours. I can't recreate external accountability because it's external to me by definition. Internal accountability, people that do that, they're amazing. Whenever somebody says, oh, is that a thing? Procrastination? Really? You do that, do you? I go, oh, tell me more, because clearly you don't. Success leaves clues. But the majority of people do struggle with procrastination, and external accountability I found was a real winner. And that's why I restarted my coaching business. I thought, well, I could do that. That's how I could add value and serve people. But actually, the book is self-help. 95% of it is just about how you can help yourself, and you may never need the external accountability. But it's what I call the belt and braces approach, the British idea of holding your pants or trousers up to have a belt and braces. External accountability will do that.
I love it. And you did go very quick. I appreciate it. You did awesome. So here's what was going through my mind for each thing. So the understanding, because I look at everything from as a professional organizer, how does this either help me in my business, like in the back end and with what I'm doing, or how does this help my clients? And what I love about yours is it's actually both in a lot of what you said, right? It can help us in our business, but it can also help our clients when we're working with them. But I know no one, especially the people listening to the podcast, and then even on YouTube, I have it switch back and forth, so they couldn't see me. But when you started talking about momentum, I was like, yes, because I am constantly, when clients call me and they're like, okay, I need to do my whole house, or I need to do like these bigger projects that aren't just like a 1 or 2 session and done kind of thing, I flat out tell them, listen, we have to get the momentum going. If we do not get this momentum going, we're not going to make it anywhere. Or by the time we get to the kitchen, the other room is going to be back to chaos. Or, like it's just, it doesn't work if there's no momentum in organizing. And so that makes sense that with, the getting results and stuff, of course you need the momentum. But there are very few people that I've heard talk about momentum.
Yes.
And with a lot of my clients, the second I say it, they're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that. I am so happy that that's part of what you've realized. And then also, strategies to get out of it. Like you said, we need to understand, we have to first and foremost understand what's our goal, what's the problem, what's the issue, what's happening, all the things. Same with our clients. We have to help them understand that here's where we're at, here's where we're wanting to get to. Then we need a strategy to get there, but then we need that momentum and accountability. Huge. I love it. So good.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'm going to give you now what I call the crown jewels of the tech. There's quite a few things in the book that are really important. And if we have time, I'll get to as many as I can. But I'm going to give away the best bit as far as I'm concerned, because it goes straight into the science. You got to understand what I said earlier. Procrastination is an inside job. It's as natural to people, fearing about that man-eating bear as it is to being hungry and I've got to eat, or the reproduction drive. All of that is natural. Procrastination is nature. It's hardwired into your brains. Now, what I discovered was I did have to look at the biology. I had to look at the neurology. I had to look at the psychology, all the ologies, you see. That's why I came up with get resultsology. So looking at all of those, I thought, okay, so what does the science tell us? And the science actually breaks down. So with apologies to the scientists listening or watching this, I am not one, and I'm going to absolutely murder the science now. But that's because I'm very outcome driven, and I want to get to the point of what I'm saying, which I hope will be helpful. So the science is that there are two parts of our brain that we're interested in. There's the first part that sits right at the center of our brain is called the limbic system. And the limbic system is where your fight, flight, or freeze response kicks off. And it's instinctive and it's instant. You know, if you have a man-eating tiger running at you, you don't want to stop and think, oh, what shall I do about that? You don't. You just go, run! So there's that. And it's powerful. It's powerful for a reason. Our brain, actually, our entire brain exists for only two reasons. And the reason number one is our own personal survival throughout our entire life. And number two is procreation. How do we figure out how to procreate? That's it. Everything else is icing on the cake. Everything else is having fun with life. But our brain is designed to help us survive and to procreate, survival of the species. Nothing else. And procrastination is part of that. Survival. Don't get eaten, right? So don't get threatened. Don't let the landlord evict you. Don't let that utility company get you into all sorts, throw you into jail for not paying your bills. Don't let that terrible disease affect you or your loved ones. All of these things, survival, and procreation. So it's very strong and it's instantly triggered. Just opening an email with bad news and you will feel triggered and you go into what's called threat modality. On the other side of the coin, at the front of your brain is the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is where you do your rational thinking. It's where you think logically. It's where you plan your business, plan your life, plan your organizing, plan your day, plan your family. And it's where you do all of that clear thinking. It's not instinctive. It's rational. It's logical. You know, it might be a little bit illogical to others, but if it makes sense to you, that's all that matters, right? It's where it's the higher function of the brain. And it's what I call, or what they call, the reward modality is there. Now, if you're under 25, here's the kicker. If you're under 25, it's not fully formed. And if you think about it, the largest group of people in the world that procrastinate and are known for it are students. Well, hello. They don't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex yet. They're still in their limbic system. They're still busy procreating, aren't they? Let's be honest. Like crazy, right?
Right.
But with a prefrontal cortex, for learning, it is not yet fully formed. It's not dominant. And even when it is fully formed, it's not as strong as your limbic system. It takes time to get it going. So that's the science. 3 words, and then I'm done with the science because my brain is already starting to catch fire because I can't retain it. I genuinely, it took me ages to just remember this. You need 3 neurotransmitters to get yourself into a highly motivated and momentum-driven productive state. I hope you're taking notes because I'm going to rattle them off fast. You need dopamine. You've probably all heard of dopamine. It's a famous one. Dopamine addictions and all of that. The dopamine thing in your pocket, that's your phone. It's the happy neurotransmitter. It's what makes us feel high. Dopamine. That's why it's famous. It's the celebrity neurotransmitter. Then you need noradrenaline and you need acetylcholine. You what? Pardon? Sorry? Yeah. Noradrenaline and acetylcholine. When I read those and I realized that you need all 3 to be in your productive state, I thought, I'll never remember those. Not in a million years. What I will remember is what they do. And this is how I describe it. I came up with my productivity trifecta because it's the productivity, that's what they are. My productivity team. I decided to call dopamine the conductor, like the conductor of an orchestra. And the conductor of the orchestra resides in your prefrontal cortex, and it brings a cacophony of all the different noises, all the different instruments, all the different demands on your time together into a coherent sound. They give them the music, they rehearse them, and then they create the music of your life, right? That is the conductor's job. Captain of the ship, if you like, if you want to use a different analogy. But let's stay with conductor because I like the conductor and I like music. Then the that's the dopamine. Then the noradrenaline, that is the fun-sized warrior. Now, the word adrenaline is in there. That gives you a clue. We've all heard of adrenaline. Fun-sized warrior. What do I mean by that? I don't mean a big warrior like a soldier that takes you into battle. I mean, you need that if you're a literal soldier. But that also triggers another neurotransmitter called cortisol. And we don't need to know much about that except to know that when cortisol is present, you are in full fight mode. And you need that sometimes, but you don't normally need it when you're trying to tidy the living room. You don't need it, right? You don't normally need it when you're trying to fill out a spreadsheet. It's too much. you're too
Right. So
much
you
on edge.
need the adrenaline essentially, but you don't need that much
You
adrenaline.
don't need
It's a
that much.
fun-sized
You
warrior,
need fun
small.
sized, as James Clear says
Yeah.
in his analogy of Goldilocks. Not too much, not too little, just enough. Right.
Yes.
And so I call it the fun size warrior, like fun size chocolate bars that you can have in your lunch boxes, although no one can afford chocolate these days, but in the old days when we could, right? So fun sized. And you need that on your shoulder. I always depict it in my graphics, or little fun size warrior on your shoulder. Just come on. Now, for example, right now, the fun size warrior is keeping me on the edge of my seat. If I sit back, which I won't do because I'll lose the sound, but if I sit right back and relax, I'll lose my train of thought. Now I do that anyway, but I'll completely lose it. I'll be away with the fairies. I won't know what the heck we're here for. Who are you again? What are we talking about? What's my name? Right. But on the edge of my seat, that adrenaline, that noradrenaline is flowing. And the fun size warrior is just keeping me just that little bit anxious, that little bit stressed, because I need that to keep myself moving forward, momentum. The third one, which was acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine is an interesting one. Apparently, when we're children, it's naturally present. And if you think about it, when you're a child, although childhood is a long period of time, 10, 15 years, it's actually the time of your life when you learn at your most rapid. By the time you're 2, you can not only understand your parents' language, you can speak it. Now, tell me any other language in the world that you can learn in 2 years flat, fluently, right? Fluently. You learn to walk, you learn to run. You don't, obviously, you're still vulnerable. Human babies are vulnerable. Human children are vulnerable until they're physically bigger, but they learn very rapidly. And that's because they are brilliant at focusing. Absolutely brilliant. I know they can't focus if they've got gas. They'll focus on the gas then. They'll scream the house down. But if you give them a movie to watch, like a movie that they enjoy, they'll watch it again and again and again, and they will not take their eyes off it. If you give them a nice toy in a nice box, they'll usually play with the box for all of Christmas Day. It's so annoying, isn't it? They play with the box rather than the toy. Oh yeah, well that's all right because you can play with the toy, but they'll get to it eventually. Because they find the box fascinating and they'll be focused on that. Children are brilliant at focusing, and so I call that the scholar. So you've got the conductor, the fun-size warrior, and the scholar. And when you're an adult, you need the scholar to be present, to be focused on what you're doing. And here's the kicker. The acetylcholine is not naturally present. You have to force yourself to generate it. And of course, we're not chemists. We can't sort of pour something in the one ear and one up the nose and something in your mouth. It's all about creating the right environment. It's what I call getting into the groove, like the Madonna song, which I'm not going to sing it because I'll get done for copyright and for being a terrible singer. But it goes through my mind. You've got to get into the groove. I use the analogy in the book of like how you get a stylus into a needle on a record, on the old vinyl records. It goes round and round. That's where you want to be. That's the groove of work. Get into the groove. You need to be focused. You need to be a little bit stressed, a little bit anxious, and you need to have a plan, but you need to stay in the groove, getting into the groove. And the scholar is what gets you there with focus. And I'll give you a clue. You'll know when the scholar has been in the building, so to speak, when you look at your watch and go, oh, I'll just do this for 5 minutes. And then you look up from your watch 5 minutes later and you realize that hours have passed. That's because you were present and completely focused. That's when time goes rapidly, it's because you are absorbed in whatever it is you're doing. So you have been producing acetylcholine. So you need that productivity trifecta. And so everything else in the book is all about how do you get yourself into that productivity trifecta state? How do you get the conductor into the building? Because by the way, the reward modality is what we're talking about. That's the perfect reward modality. But the threat modality, that can be triggered by a knock on the door, a phone call, an email, someone speaking to you with bad news. And then you try getting out of being in a bad state of mind into a positive state of mind. Everybody listening to this or watching this will know that that's hard. So you have to minimize the potential for those things happening.
I mean, honestly, I know you say you're not a scientist, but I feel like we went pretty scientific there. You did a very good job. I appreciate it. But what I love about the way that, that you explained it is just, it is that, right? Like when you get to that state, and we've all been there at some point that we can think of when time has passed. Like that's a very good example of that feeling of, like you said, being present, you're into it, especially for me when I'm at sessions, right? Like I'll get into the middle of figuring out the puzzle and doing all the things or I'll be working on my podcast or something for POC. And my husband will yell downstairs and be like, "Are you still down there?" And I'll look and be like, "Oh gosh, it's been 3 hours," and to me, I thought it was like 20 minutes. But so, I mean, that makes sense because anytime I'm in that groove is when I get the most done.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so that's when you know you're winning. That's when you know that in my book, I don't actually refer to this in my book, but in my marketing for the book, I talk about the momentum formula, which is about doing things today, do it today, profit tomorrow, and repeat, like the instructions on the back of a shampoo bottle. Rinse and repeat. So whatever you're doing today that worked, do it, do more of it. Tomorrow you will reap the benefits, whether that's more profit, more income, more cash in your bank. Maybe it's more time freedom for better life balance. In my case, by the way, it was also more better emotional and physical health, because one of the things that happened, one of my procrastination go-tos was comfort eating. And I would say still is. If I'm emotionally distraught, I'll go for comfort eating. I'll eat all the things that are wrong for me. But since I've been following my own technology, in the last 9 months, I've lost 60 pounds.
Oh,
I'm not selling a diet here, but I've lost that. And by the way, I don't use any of these jab things. I didn't even know they existed when I started doing this. I just started eating more sensibly. I stopped comfort eating. I'm like, why do I want to do that? I'm busy. Don't be silly.
Yeah.
I've got things to do today. I'm not going to, why would I do that? I've lost 60 pounds. I was making a conscious effort, but it wasn't hard because I didn't have the emotional craving that the procrastination was triggering.
Oh, that's a powerful statement. The emotional instability, the cravings, all of it, that procrastination, like it does trigger that.
Yeah.
Like
I did say right at the start, it affects every single area of your life. No exceptions.
Yes. Yeah. I know it, but it's crazy to me. Like when you just said that, it kind of clicked of like, when I am on those days that I'm procrastinating or staying in my pajamas too long, or maybe I didn't have a session or whatever that is, right? When I'm not in the groove and I'm kind of procrastinating, those are the days that like I feel worse about myself. It's hard to get the momentum going. I don't really want to talk to like there's all these different things that I'm just like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll deal with it later. So that makes sense that it affects everything. And I guess I hadn't really thought about it that way. I know you said it, but it clicked for me. Just then even more.
No. Well, it clicked for me. I was like, oh gosh. I was looking at videos of myself because I've been doing Goldbusters for a year now. And I thought, oh, you've lost weight. And I thought, well, I know I've lost weight. And I thought, wait a minute. How did I do it next time? And I've never been able to do it before. And I thought, oh, that's because I'm just busy. And I'm
enjoying your life.
Yeah.
Instead of procrastinating and being stressed out and all the negative things, you're enjoying life now.
Yes.
I love
it. Also the critical point is to remember procrastination are familiar behaviors, things that we are comfortable doing, as opposed to the uncomfortable things, the things that we don't feel passionate about but have to get done. So that's everything from, playing games, watching box sets, reading books, going for walks, exercising and all of that, and comfort eating. And it's all about doing things that we find easy and familiar and we feel fulfilled doing them, but they're not necessarily anything to do with us getting productive. Or if they are productive, they may be productive, but not on things that really matter.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, before we wind up, will you tell everyone about the freebie and your website and all the places they can find you?
Absolutely. Well, so I kind of on a mission here. Well, I am on a mission here. I want to get this out into the world. I understand that there are other books you can buy. There are other courses you can go on. But what I've done is I've looked at the science and I said, okay, this is how I've interpreted it. And if you like the way that I interpret things, great. If you don't, I don't mind. I won't be offended. But if you do, I'd love to get the book into your hands and you can go and buy it as a paperback on Amazon. Thank you very much. I'll take that. But I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to give it away as an unabridged free PDF to anybody that wants it. So and to get it, all you need to do is go to, I've got a dedicated URL, which I hope you will remember. It's called reallyusefultips.com. That's really as in, yes, I really am giving away the unabridged version, all of it, all 80,000 words. And I really mean it. And you get it before I change my mind, because I probably will change my mind at some point. It's useful, as in, I hope you find it useful, and tips, as in it's full of tips, because no two people are the same. So there isn't just one strategy, one size fits all. I have a variety of strategies to cope with the fact that everybody has different things that work for them. So that's really usefultips.com. If the reading is not your thing, I've also produced a very short 5-day video course, 10 minutes a day, and you can go do that. And it's the same technologies in the book, albeit abbreviated. And that's called skyrocketyourproductivitychallenge.com. And if you go there, you can get that free course as well. And you can also have the book as well. I don't mind. You can have them all. I'll give away. I do believe in giving away the crown jewels because I want to get this out there. I do not want people to get to the point. I don't want to feel like the person that goes into the bakery shop. There's a story about a Polish baker that has a sign that says free bread tomorrow in the front of the shop. And people go in the next day and they go, oh, I've come in for some free bread. And the baker will go, what are you talking about? His sign says free bread. And he said, yeah, tomorrow, come back tomorrow, right? And that's obviously a perpetual thing. What procrastination is. It's perpetual. We're often in denial about it. I want to help people get past that. There's a lot of things that we didn't get to talk about today. It's all in the book and all on the video course.
Yeah. And my personal opinion I've looked at your stuff. I've not read the book yet, but I have looked at a lot of like your website and like different things. And we've had a few conversations now at this point. And I think this is tremendous for our clients as well. Like I was saying earlier in the episode, like I normally don't promote other people's stuff, but the reason I was like, hey, you have to come do a podcast episode is because I know as organizers, we are constantly getting stuck in our business. We're trying to start a business, all the things, like I said before. But I also know a ton of our clients are chronic procrastinators, which is why they call us in the first place, is to get them that accountability, is to help them figure out a plan, is to help get the momentum started, right? So all of the things that your book talks about, it's more techniques and strategies and all of the things that we can use with our clients. We could help our clients with these things because I am a big advocate of the more I know, the more I can help others and share with them.
Yes. Can I just say, to address directly what you're saying, people who procrastinate are not lazy. And that's one of the common myths. Laziness, I cover that in the book. Laziness is when someone is choosing not to do something today because they choose to. But one person's laziness is another person's rest and recreation. Unless you're the person doing it. I mean, laziness is a thing. And who's to say you can't be lazy? Lions are lazy, but they seem to do okay. They still eat when they need to, right? But it's not procrastination. Procrastination is the irrational putting off till tomorrow what you know you want to, need to, should be doing today. Laziness is, no, I don't care. I don't want to do it. So I want to just say to your listeners and viewers, if it's not laziness, and it probably isn't, it's procrastination. And that's an inside job. You're wired to do it. And you need to know how to overcome it. And you can.
Absolutely. Yes. Yay. It's so good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And again, go check out Goalbusters, his podcast. It is so much fun. It's quick little 7-minute episodes, and he has different people and he asks 5 questions, and it's kind of like a fire round of questions. And it was so much fun. But thank you so much, Robin. And then for those of you listening, I appreciate you, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Pro Organizers Coach podcast. Go to proorganizerscoach.com to find all the ways that we can help you succeed in your business. Remember, you have the power to make a difference in people's lives through decluttering and organization. So keep honing your skills, embracing those challenges, and fostering connections. Girl, you've got this.